Hello, my name is Elizabeth Merkel, and I am the Director of Career Services and Talent Development here at the University of San Francisco School of Management. And I am thrilled to be one of the many people welcoming you all here today. I am also incredibly excited to be able to introduce today's keynote conversation between Professor Tony Patino and Charlie Day, brought to you by your Career Services and Alumni Relations teams. Tony Patino is a renowned expert in entertainment, advertising, consumer behavior, and marketing analytics. He holds degrees in marketing, business administration, and social policy from Duke, Harvard, and Temple universities. During his career in entertainment, Tony worked in marketing, sales, and research at leading entertainment firms like Sony Picture Entertainment and ABC Disney. He incorporates his years of experience as an entertainment marketing executive into his teaching and is not at all shy about sharing his love of TV and movies with his students and colleagues. Note to all future students of Professor Tony Patino, he is a huge Vanderpump Rules fan. When Tony and I first shared the news that Charlie Day had agreed to speak today, we received a variety of responses. The largest response was that of excitement. Folks telling us how much they loved Sonny or how they dressed as Green Man at their friend's bachelor party a year ago. Others responded curiously, some wondering, who is Charlie Day? And others wanting to know what insights Charlie might have to offer each of you today. Well, for those of you who do not know him, Charlie Day is an American actor, screenwriter, director, producer, and comedian. He is also an incredible husband and father and an exceptional friend to all those that know him. In 2005, Charlie co-created the FX series It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia with his friends Rob McElhenney and Glenn Howerton. He serves as a writer, executive producer, and also stars alongside his fellow co-creators as the lovable character Charlie Kelly. Sunny recently started production on its 15th season, making it the longest running live action comedy series in television history. You may also recognize him for his role in films like Horrible Bosses, Pacific Rim, and Fist Fight, to name a few. Charlie co-created and executive produces Mythic Quest, a comedy based around a video game studio for Apple TV. And he will be making his feature film directorial debut with El Tonto, featuring an all-star cast, including Kate Beckinsale, Edie Falco, and John Malkovich. Charlie writes, directs, and stars as a simpleton who rises through Hollywood to become a celebrity, only to then lose it all. So let's see. How does a writer, director, actor, comedian relate to you and the journey you are about to embark on? Well, let's start by talking about writing. I certainly hope this isn't a surprise to any of you, but you are going to be writing a lot of papers in grad school. Content creation is hard. It is a labor-intense process, especially when you want your words and your work to have impact. So how does Charlie work through the writing process? Where does he find his inspiration? And how does he decide which content delivery channel or medium to use? Directing. No doubt many of you, if not all of you, are here to further develop your management and leadership skills and style. We've all had our fair share of horrible bosses. I mean, as you may recall, Charlie starred in a movie that gave attention to the overwhelming number of lackluster, overzealous, difficult bosses out there. Leadership is hard at all levels because people are people and not all projects are successful. And leadership in Hollywood is no different than leadership in Silicon Valley or elsewhere. Charlie is finding success as a director and producer, most likely because of his personality. Not only is he smart and hardworking, but he is happy, funny, and likable. And because of that, he excites people and they choose to follow him. Acting. In your life and in this program, you will be asked to take on several roles. Some you are excited about and others that you're not. So how do you decide which role or path to pursue? The entertainment industry, or Hollywood, is often referred to as the land where dreams come true. But we all know that for every yes, there are many more no's. So how do you pick yourself up and keep going? Lastly, comedy. Charlie is funny. And Tony, or Professor Patino, is pretty funny too, for those of you lucky enough to have him as a faculty. But just like it's not actually always sunny in Philadelphia, your time here won't always be sunny either. There will be teams that don't jive, ideas that fail, and classes that you just don't like, but have to sit through because it's part of your core curriculum. But if there's anything that we've learned from this past year, it's that in tough times, humor can provide the levity needed to build bonds, diffuse tension, boost innovation, and bolster resilience. Just ask Jennifer Acker and Naomi Bagdonas, authors of Humor, Seriously, Why Humor is a Secret Weapon in Business and Life. Or, since he's here, maybe we will just ask Charlie. Without further ado, I would like to introduce you to two of my dear friends, Professor Tony Patino and Charlie Dye.
Charlie, thanks for joining us today at USF School of Management. We really appreciate you taking time from, Patty's Pub on 2nd, or is that 3rd and Dickinson that you guys say all the time?
It's on 2nd.
It's 2nd, okay. I thought we'd begin with your acting experiences. You have a significant portfolio of roles, everything from Charlie Kelly to Dale Arbus in Horrible Bosses, to Dr. Newton Giesler in Pacific Rim, to the voice of Art. How did you start your acting career?
Well, that's a good question. I think I was dabbling in school plays here and there as a kid, but growing up in Rhode Island, I didn't know anyone who was an actor, so it didn't seem like a profession to pursue. And then I was in college, and I was studying art, art history, and a friend of mine had gone to a summer theater festival called the Williamstown Theater Festival, and it was a really good acting program where you could take a few courses. You might get to say a line or two in a professional production. You might help build the sets, but you were kind of doing everything theater related from the ground up. And it was a place where a lot of Broadway actors went, and some Hollywood celebrities went. So for me, I went from going sort of 0 to 100, no real acting experience, to suddenly surrounded by what felt like the industry. I spent 4 sort of summers there climbing through the ranks, and over the course of that time, I'd moved to New York City and was just waiting tables. And eventually, while maybe my 3rd summer there, I was in a production, and one of the actors' agents came to see it and said, "Hey, I like you. Could I represent you?" And that's how I got my foot in the door.
Could you ever expected this growing up in, Rhode Island? And I heard that one of your first roles was in a High School Musical of South Pacific. Is that true?
That is true. Yeah. Well, I always wanted to do the plays in high school, and I would go to them, and I thought they were great, but I didn't really have the courage to sign up until I was a senior and had a little bit more confidence. And so I waited too long. So I just did one play in high school, but yeah, it was South Pacific, which was a great play.
What was your first role that you were the most proud of? What's the first role that you took that you feel the most pride in?
Well, to tell you the truth, I think I was proud of them all. I think that's a quality that I'm lucky to be born with, where I've always looked at my career as if I was just absolutely on top of the world. So I think from the very first time I did a Foot Locker commercial, or when someone paid me $400 to be in their play once, I thought, wow, I did it. I'm getting paid to do this. And I know people who sort of are never happy. They're like, oh, I'm trying to get this thing and I'm not getting what I want yet, whether that's, working consistently, or whether that's awards, or, big action movies, or whatever their goal is. I've always really enjoyed the journey in and of itself. So to answer that question, I've been proud of almost every single one, you know?
You talk about this journey, and I want to, let's talk about how you've transitioned and, pivoted in your career. So you were an actor, but now you're a producer, you're a director, you're a writer. You've had these transitions and you work together and all this. Maybe you could tell us a little about, how you look at each one of those roles.
Yeah, well, it was a little bit accidental, the transition out of just acting into the other fields, I guess. When we put It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia together, we were just kind of dipping our toes in the writing and producing of a television series, but I don't think any of us were. Maybe Rob McElhenney was aspiring to do it, but Glenn and I certainly weren't. We were sort of actor first driven. And then when we sold the show, the network said, hey, you guys are running this. And we thought, okay, we better figure this out. and then over the years, as we did it, and by necessity, which is to say, hey, if you want to have this television show, you have to figure out how to produce it. You have to figure out how to write it. It was pretty much the ultimate boot camp in terms of, okay, how do we get something done? How do we make sure it's up to at least our personal standard? And then after a few years of doing that successfully, we were more confident in our ability to do it with other projects and other, movies and TV shows, and then started to like it. Although usually in the middle of a project, I lament it greatly, and I'm like, what am I doing? Why don't I just act? Why am I torturing myself this way? But then when you get to the end of the line with a project like that, there's a little bit more ownership over the end product, I think.
And as you progress in your career, is there a hat is acting still the hat you feel the most comfortable in and you enjoy the most?
I think so. I think we all have, we all can fall victim to that feeling of imposter syndrome. And I would say I have it the least with acting, in terms of feeling like, well, this kind of comes naturally to me, and I don't feel like I'm pushing a square peg through a round hole. But with the acting and the writing and the producing, directing, whatever it is, I'm always there's always a little voice in my head that I have to quiet down that says it's not good enough.
And as you shifted, I know we're going to get to It's Always Sunny in a couple of minutes, but when you shifted into this, producing and directing, the whole issue of managing people comes up. And, and it's probably more difficult because, a lot of your management is managing friends, and also, directing and managing, on a show with, your wife is also a part of. Tell us how your take on that and what skill sets that you use that you had to develop.
Well, yeah, that was a little bit of trial by fire. Like, in the beginning, it was very frustrating for us because when we originally put together the television show, we were holding the cameras ourselves, and we were even holding the boom. And then we transitioned very quickly from that to, okay, you can't actually go move the camera because you're not in the union. So you have to tell a guy who has to tell a guy to move a camera, or a girl. But like, I think, first and foremost, the most simple thing is obviously treat everyone like an equal human being.
Yeah.
We were always pretty good at that. So I think a testament to that is a lot of the people who have been working with us are still working with us to this day. So it starts there, talk to people the way you want to be talked to. And then you build off that a little bit, which was, make sure you're holding yourself and everyone else accountable to a work standard that you're expecting from people, and doing it in a respectful way. And then sometimes the terrible thing of having to fire people, which is pretty much the worst thing you'll have to go through. And sometimes it just has to be done. I don't really have a fix for that other than saying just try to do it as humanely as possible.
No.
And then, yeah, we just sort of figured it out as we went along. But it's never a fixed thing. I don't think you can walk into that kind of a situation and say, here's the ideal way of dealing with people, of managing a scenario, because it's always a changing thing. And I would say now managing the show is a completely different task where people have been around for so long and you respect them so much that is a whole different sort of level of like, well, okay, how can I had a thing yesterday where we were talking about an outline for one of the episodes, and Glenn, who's one of the guys that we started the show with, was going to write it with another one of our writers who's new this year. And I was saying to him, normally I knew I was kind of on the fence about the quality of the outline. Normally I would let the writer take a stab at it, knowing that I could just, if it wasn't working, I could throw it away and say, hey, we need to start this over. But because Glenn was doing it, and because obviously we're partners and we worked together for so long, I didn't want to get into the position where I had to tell him that I want to throw away this whole thing. Versus maybe in the very beginning of doing the show, where I would have much easier, it would have been easier to do that because none of us knew what we were doing. Now there's this sort of expectation that people know what they're doing, but I don't think anyone ever knows what they're doing. So it's the ever changing, you're always changing your way that you deal with people. But I think finding real honesty and, okay, am I being honest about how I'm feeling about the situation? And am I treating the other person respectfully and honestly, even if it's a tough conversation, is always the best policy, if there is a policy.
You mentioned before when you talked about this issue of, rejection. In Hollywood, if there's any industry that is ripe with rejection, it has to be Hollywood. I used to work at Sony on pilot season, and I worked on shows like The Nanny, and I remember going through this whole, pilots come in, they get canceled, and so much goes on. And in Hollywood, as an actor, you get turned down from roles. You have great projects that you pitch and you go forward, and you might think it's great, and all of a sudden it's rejected in the last round, or maybe it's rejected in the first rounds. So this whole thing, rejection, though, how do you deal with this rejection factor in Hollywood? You've been really resilient. What do you do to handle that?
Well, you really do have to develop a thick skin, right? Because for every single successful show that we've gotten on the air, there's a pile of ones that didn't work out for us. For every role that you've seen me do, there's been many that I pursued and didn't get, and then for everything that's been well received, you can probably dig up a very cruel and personal review, which is like picking me apart as a human being, and you got to deal with that. So it's tough to deal with. It's really tough to deal with because I guess the trick is, and this is a real sort of mind trick, but is to not equate happiness with work success or what other people think about a thing, which is, I don't know that I can actually do it, but I know that I often attempt to do it. Not equate your self-worth with how your company is doing, or how your what one of your students is pursuing, how their particular project is going, is separate from your self-worth as an individual in the world. So trying to keep your feet on the ground and be as passionate as you can about the work, and then find a way to have a healthy detachment with it afterwards. But that's I don't think I'm going to wake up one day and say I'm oblivious to a cruel review, or I'm perfectly okay with no one wanting to buy this script I wrote, or boy, it would be no sweat off my back to get fired by the Coen brothers or whatever. Like there's going to be a lot of pain and rejection, and you kind of just have to lick your wounds and pick yourself back up and keep going.
I like the fact that you said having thick skin and picking yourself and being passionate, because we have a lot of new students coming into the program, and I think they always have. It's always great to have a perspective when you enter a job, that things might not go right or things might not go wrong, but just to keep on thinking ahead and to move yourself up. And I want to segue into this and I want to get into a little of Always Sunny, if you don't mind, for a little while, because let's be honest, it's a huge success. You're entering your 15th season. Now, weren't you picked up to season 18, or did I have that wrong? Didn't you get a multi-year pickup?
Yes, they've given us the option to keep going if we're capable of doing that up to the 18th season. Now,
it's truly amazing, it's the longest running live situation comedy. I mean, that's just amazing. Come on, no one else has that. And, the characters, I always look at the characters as sort of it's the new millennial Seinfeld. It's these characters that are there. You form this cult following, people, a lot of viewers are really riveted to your show, and they talk about it. And, that's awesome. And the one thing is, where do you see the future going on after this next season? Where do you see Always Sunny going, and how do you keep it fresh? Because keeping it fresh is a big deal today. And how 15 years ago when you started it, I mean the first season, you changed it between first and second season. You had the character, but you kept it going. And let's be honest, it's awesome. So maybe you could share with us how you keep it fresh. Where do you see it going?
It is a lot of difficult work to keep it fresh, and a lot of tough conversations. It was a little bit easier to do the show in the beginning when you were just starting out and the sky's the limit with the story ideas. And the longer you do it, the more topics you've covered, or the more you're realizing, okay, this character's reaction to this moment is this. There's the benefit of knowing how a character would react to a thing, but there's also the pitfall of saying yes, but now it's sort of copy repeat, and the audience is just getting the same exact thing they're used to. And the key to comedy really is that it's surprising. Is that you might expect you're opening, there's something hiding behind the door, and you think, oh, okay, I know it's a duck, I know it's a duck, I know it's a duck, and you open the door and it's a cat. And it's funny because you weren't expecting the cat, right? It's a little bit of familiarity and then subverting that expectation, and so there's a lot of pitfalls for us in terms of repeating ourselves and with storylines or concepts. One of the good things about our show is we have the ability to be topical, and the world just keeps getting crazier. So so we can at least write to that. And then, it's just pushing ourselves as hard as we can to try to keep it fresh. But, I think there are times where I think we've absolutely nailed that. And there are times in the last few years where I personally feel like, we failed with this episode or that episode, and that they're not terrible. I think they're better than maybe an average show would be this far into the run. But we're holding ourselves to a very personal standard that is devastating when we feel like we don't achieve it.
And when you began, when you began 15 years ago, it was a totally different industry. Let's be honest. Television, back in the early 2000s, and how they went around the pilot season, and how people view. Let's be honest, how people view television is entirely different. And I think the binge watching plays well to Always Sunny. I think it really plays well because when people find it, they're experiencing it and want to experience the whole family of episodes. And so they'll go in and they'll binge as much as they can binge, through different feeds. So how did you start pitching it to cable, or was it originally done as a pitch to the broadcast?
Well, when we originally put it together, it was essentially a home movie that we had shot in our apartments and things. And then we looked at it and we thought, boy, this is really terrible, but there's enough of a concept here that we should try this again. And we threw the whole thing away and we started over again. The second time we did it, we thought, okay, there's really something to these characters and their sort of nihilism, and there's, you know, there's a spark here. So we tried one more time. We made an additional episode, so essentially a third go at it. And it was that third one that we took around town, and we went to the big networks, and we also went to basic cable. There was no streaming back then. And I think we had offers from maybe Comedy Central offered for us to rewrite a new script. And I think maybe Fox was interested. I can't remember, but FX offered us the opportunity to actually shoot a pilot in earnest with the budget. And they were kind of an interesting new network at the time. They had like The Shield and maybe Nip Tuck, and they had a lot of buzz. And we thought, well, this could be cool. And then we thought maybe doing a edgy comedy on a network known for drama might be a way to break out. And in a way it was, and in a way it wasn't, you know, because we stayed pretty under the radar for a long time.
Did you ever expect, you know, going on 50, is it 153 episodes now, I think you're on about? And,
probably, that sounds about right.
Yeah, so did you ever anticipate, like, honestly, you know, going in shooting that first pilot, you know, did you ever anticipate it getting it?
No, not at all. I mean, we were just so happy to work, to even have that opportunity. And we thought maybe if we're lucky, we'll get a season or two out of it. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I don't think we think that far in advance. We're just like, we've got something to do this year. Let's try to do it well. And then what happens next, you know?
Didn't you take a little hiatus in, you know, you stalled one season, and was that to regain, you know, there might've been some other stuff, but did that help with the, you know, the freshness factor, I should say, you know, having a little break from it, and then, you know, getting everyone together after a little break from everyone?
Yes, I think so. I think anytime we take a little bit of a healthy step away from the show, we all get back in that writer's room pretty invigorated and excited to see each other again. And, you know, and then we finish the writer's room, we can't wait to get to set and not be just staring at each other in a room under neon lights and at an empty whiteboard and banging our heads against the wall.
Yeah. Can you anticipate, I don't know, this got another 153 more episodes to come, or do you think?
No. I mean, we love the show, and we love the characters, and we love each other, and we love the fans' enthusiasm for the show. But it seems to get more and more difficult to execute it. So we're just going 1 year at a time, and just as long as we feel as though the quality of the show is good, we'll keep going. But you know, if we really hit a wall, then we'll stop.
How is the pandemic and everything that's going on now, are you going to be working that into this new season? How, you know, I mean, without giving away too much, I don't want to give away too much, you know.
A little bit. You know, it's if we had been in production when this had all started, I think it would have been a little bit more topical. But I think we'll probably have one episode in the beginning of the season, which sort of catches the audience up on what we were doing during 2020. And that'll be our way of sort of dealing with it.
And how did, you know, everyone asked the questions, and you're probably tired of answering this one, but how did you get Danny DeVito into it? Is it season 2 he came in as Frank?
Yeah, well, this was a lucky thing. FX had some success with putting Glenn Close on The Shield. I think that's what they did. And they saw a big ratings hike at the time, and they thought, look, we like your show, and we like you guys, and you're making the show so cheaply, we might as well keep doing it. But we'd really like to see if we could get a name on board. And Danny had been watching the first season, I believe, with his kids, and really liked it. And John Landgraf, who ran and still runs FX, had worked at Jersey Films, which was Danny DeVito's production company. And so John reached out to Danny and kind of put it on his radar. And then Rob went to go talk to Danny, and Glenn and I stayed back because we didn't want to just throw 3 people at him. And Danny liked it, and he gave us 15 days. He said, "I'll give you 15 days to shoot me in the first season." And we scripted out the entire season. We scheduled all his work first. We shot him completely out in 15 days, and then went and shot the rest of the season. And then he had so much fun that he just stayed, and now we shoot him in a normal amount of time.
And the rest is history, right?
The rest is history.
And I want to go back to your view and your thoughts about the television industry right now. It's undergoing massive amount of change. It's not what it was, and I know you have, it just, I know we're focusing on It's Always Sunny, but you also have Mythic Quest.
Yep.
And and you have also, tell us what your thoughts are about where television is today, where you think it's headed. Are you nervous? Are you excited? What recommendations would you tell to people in the industry if you were talking to industry panels?
I think I would say get into tech, because it seems like the real money's in the platforms. But look, it's an exciting time in the industry. On the one hand, there is a downside to how much content's being made. It's harder to break out with something and really break through. When Danny's a great example. When Danny was on Taxi, there were 5 TV shows, 5 networks or 5 affiliates, whatever, completely. That was it. So when Danny appeared on Taxi and walked out his door, suddenly he was a household name.
Yep.
Right after that first episode. Now you could be on Pen 15 on Hulu and be making just an amazing, hilarious, emotionally intelligent show, and it's very hard to maybe break through to the audience that you should be breaking through to. So that's a challenge. But the other side of it is that there's a lot more opportunities. So you really have a better chance than ever before in history, I think, to get something made, get it on the air, and there's a wider net of thanks to this sea change of people finally waking up to diversity and inclusion. There's much more opportunities for a wider group of people to get their stories told, and there's a good incentive for these streaming services or networks or whatever it is to watch your stuff. So what I'm excited about is who is that next young filmmaker, or who is the next young person with a great idea, who's going to take advantage of the technology that that we all have in our pockets to film something, and maybe even the technology to release it, which is, I think,
Yes.
We're getting to the point where we might be able to find ways in which people can distribute look, they're doing that already on whatever, Instagram, TikTok. That's so I think we'll probably ultimately see more of that, where someone makes a great show, like a streamable show. They do it with their friends. They do it like we did Sunny, but the look of it is outstanding because they have, they're editing on a home computer and they're filming on an iPhone. It looks just as good as a movie camera. And then they take it the extra level or step and reach a giant audience without being dependent on these, studios and networks. That's where I think we're headed.
It is exciting. It's also, I think there's so much content out there now with TikTok and YouTube, and everyone kind of get their, hands on something. And, and it plays to your role now, not only as an actor, but also your experience as a producer and a director to, maybe, have you thought about, finding these people and you being the, behind the scenes person to push it through? And, on that line, is there anything that that you're seeing today or that you're watching today that is intriguing you, and it's saying, hey, I have to look further into that?
Well, that's true. I wish I had a better eye for, like, look, that's something brilliant that Judd Apatow did, which is this: he had an eye for talent, and he had a knack for giving people these opportunities, and that was in a very sort of traditional, time in terms of the way movies were getting made. I think we're seeing less and less comedy movies in theaters, but I don't know that that's something that I have the ability to do, but I would be interested in doing it. And then, what I'm interested in was, like, I just watched Bo Burnham's special called Inside that he did during the pandemic. Here's a guy alone in his house with his camera, who's obviously an extremely talented, extremely intelligent person, but who just put together a real work of art, and then boom, it's ready for the world. So I'm just excited to see, as more and more people take control and aren't as dependent on, hey, I need you to make my movie. Like, look, if you want to land spaceships and have giant battles, you might need a budget. Maybe not. I don't know. We'll see where the technology goes. But I'm excited to see more people just having control over the material, so that that the gatekeepers aren't keeping people from making their stuff.
You allude a lot to, like, content. Content. I always believe content is king. But you need the platform, like, as you mentioned earlier. And so much of the content is the storytelling, and it's the idea. And maybe can you discuss with us, the craft of storytelling to you, and how you create that story when you're writing, and and how do you move that along, or how do you approach it?
Well, I have, there's a couple different ways. Sometimes I just will get general ideas, and they'll get stuck in my head for years, and I'll keep going back and revisiting them. And then eventually I'll sit down and start to just put ideas on note cards and line them up and say, okay, I'm starting to see these characters, this leads to this, leads to this. Personally, I don't like that process as much as I like a collaborative process. Things go much smoother when I have an idea like that, and then I have a partner that I'm writing with, and I go to him or her and I say, hey, are you interested in this idea? And we sort of start to talk about it, and then see eye to eye, and then come up with a schedule, and really start to lay some characters down and some framework for where the story takes place. And then, depending on how good of an idea you have, it usually is either extremely slow and laborious, or it goes fast and well. And actually, you know what? I don't think it is dependent on how good the idea is. It just, sometimes things click and they just come together well. And then sometimes something seems like it's going to be easy to write, and then you wind up hitting a lot of walls that are just really hard to get past.
And you're really developing your career even more. And I know you have a lot of projects you're working on right now. And one is El Tanto. Mm-hmm. Maybe you could share what we could expect from you in the next couple of years and what you're working on, because I think a lot of people, you have a really large fan base, and people are eager to see what you're doing next.
Well, I'm really excited about a film I just did for Amazon called I Want You Back, which was just a sort of traditional romantic comedy that I did with the actress Jenny Slate, who's amazing. It was a really great script written by two brilliant writers who run the show called This Is Us, which is a big hit on NBC. Yeah. And this great young director named Jason Orley, who had a hit at Sundance called Big Time Adolescence. And we just had a fantastic shoot in Atlanta, except for a few COVID shutdowns, but no one died, and we got through it. And I think it's going to be a really great movie. I'm really proud of it, and I'm excited for people to see it. And yeah, I wrote and directed a sort of smaller, I guess, I don't love this term, but I'd say quirkier film called El Tonto, which was just something that I'd written years ago and had lying around. And then one producer friend of mine that I know reached out to me and said, look, what are you doing with this? Let's try to make it. And I said, are you sure? Like it's the least commercial movie ever. I mean, I said, no, we'll find some financing. We'll put it together. And after a couple of years of trying, we found some people to make it. And then we like hit a few walls with the pandemic in terms of being able to finish it. But right now I'm just taking it around, seeing if I can find anyone to distribute it. But it's kind of an out there thing. So we'll see. I dabbled in art, which is Hollywood hates that. And then on top of that, we're in the middle of writing It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. And, we have a lot of really funny episodes this season, which I think is great. And then we have Mythic Quest on Apple, which I couldn't be more proud of. And I can't take too much credit for. I wrote the pilot with Rob, and then Megan Gans came on, who works with us on It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and David Hornsby, and they've been off and running it and just really doing a fantastic job. The show's great.
And I wanted to, before I wanted to go into like this sort of like lightning round of questions that maybe you want to share with us, and
Sure.
Maybe we'll give you you can take the fifth if you want to. If you don't want to answer a question,
Okay.
that's totally fine. Okay.
Bring
What
the
do you
heat.
feel? Yeah. What do you feel is your what was your favorite role so far in your career?
Well, it's hard not to say Charlie Kelly for It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, only because it was such a huge break, and it really, broke down the doors of getting into movies for me. And obviously our personal connection to how we built the show and all the work we do behind the scenes on it. And then after that, this I Want You Back, this romantic comedy that I just did, I just loved it. It was just such a great opportunity for me. So I think so far those two. But like I said earlier when we started the interview, I love them all. I mean, I like getting to do this. So, I look back on them all pretty fondly.
Is there any role that you lost out on that you wish you would have had in hindsight?
Oh yeah. Well, first of all, every role that everyone else did. I mean, I don't know. I'm trying to think if there's anything that I was close to. I remember when I was young and in New York, Kurt Hansen was doing this movie 8 Mile with Eminem, and there was a great role in it, and I got close to that, and they wound up going a different direction. That one stung a little bit. And then also around that time, I was pretty close to doing the Benjamin role in The Graduate, which they were doing on Broadway.
Okay.
It would have been fun. But outside of that, I think, no. I mean, there's plenty of movies I've seen that I've said, boy, it would have been great to have done that. But I don't think I was ever considered.
Who should have been your favorite co-star? You have to exclude your wife on this one.
Okay, smart. Oh man. I mean, I had a lot of fun with Jason Sudeikis and Jason Bateman, doing those Horrible Bosses movies. They're pretty great to be around. So
they were also really great watching, by the way, because they were hysterical.
Yeah, they're just a pleasure to work with. So maybe those two guys.
Okay. And when you go back and you look at your portfolio work, is there any career that you could see yourself doing outside of the entertainment industry?
Oh no, I'm just not smart enough to do anything legitimate. No, I don't think I could. I don't think I could really see myself doing anything else. It's just, it was one of those things where I was like, well, I better figure this out because I don't know what I'm going to do.
I know you should say you're not smart enough because I heard you have an honorary degree from is it Merrimack?
Yeah.
You know, and you come from a family of PhDs.
They're smart.
Yes.
They're very smart. Yeah, no, that was, but I got to speak at a graduation there, which was a lot of fun to get to do, and terrifying, but I don't think I'll do it again.
And then, I know everyone goes back to the actor studio, and the question that they always ask is, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
I'm real. I don't know. Yeah. Boy, I never thought I'd be asked that question. I didn't know you were going to channel James Lipton.
You have to blame Liz Merkel on that one. I have to tell you, because Liz is trying to set you up. We know that.
Well, look, the honest answer to that is, I think when you're a parent, I think I would want to hear God say that my kid's going to do all right.
Excellent. And I want to loop it back, and before we end, and we have these students here, and they're embarking on their career. Is there any last words of wisdom that you would like to share with them? And
Sure. Yeah. I think any endeavor, whatever you're pursuing, it's really about finding that balance of what we were saying earlier about making sure that your sense of self-worth is separate from what it is that you're pursuing. And then pursuing it with all the passion in the world. And realizing that failure is okay, and that's all just a part of the process of success. And that we really need failure to recognize what success even is. And that really it's to just enjoy the journey as best you can, right? Because you're only going to get one crack at this. So you might as well not, if you can avoid being miserable while you do it, then, then you'll look back on it. And look, if you're miserable the whole time, you look back on it and be like, well, what was the point of that? Why wasn't I out there enjoying myself? So, you have to find a way to be passionate and find the joy in your pursuits. Great.
That's great words. I love them. I think that's what we have to, really live by. But I don't want to, end without repeating to everybody, we really appreciate you taking, time and, energy today to chat with us, but then also to, just tell everybody, Always Sunny. So it's starting its 15th season. Oh, yeah. Fingers crossed that you guys have the energy and the fresh ideas and the desire to keep it going for even a couple more seasons. I think your cult followers would absolutely love that, and plus the syndication marketplace would love that for you guys.
Well, that's all gone thanks to streaming. But look, we love doing it, so hopefully we'll find ways to just keep it fresh and just keep doing it.
And then I want to tell everyone, make sure you hop on Apple TV for, Mythic Quest, right? And then the two movies that, one we might be seeing in the future, El Tonto, you have that, possibly maybe, finding a home. If it's quirky, it's going to find a home. We know that, the quirkiness, it will get there, and I think, and it forms that, that following, which is very similar to what you have with Always Sunny. And then is it the Amazon movie?
It's called I Want You Back, and we'll see. It might come out hopefully Valentine's Day.
Okay, so we make sure I have everyone in there. Please let us know so we could share with everybody when they, start, making the rounds. But we really do appreciate it, and we look forward to seeing you even in more stuff, and hearing your name around and producing and directing. And the more we get to see, I think everyone's gonna be even more excited from your fan base. So thanks again.
Well, thank you. My pleasure. I'm sorry that, in these crazy times, I'm not getting to speak directly to the students, but maybe next time.
Great. Thanks a lot.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much to both of you, Charlie and Tony. Some of you may be wondering Charlie's connection to USF. Well, Charlie and I are old family friends. We grew up together in a small town in Rhode Island. I don't remember the first time I met Charlie or the last time I saw him, but the lifetime of moments in between are both normal, everyday memories, kids growing up in the neighborhood riding bikes and playing flashlight tag, to fantastic moments like seeing Charlie's face on a bus during a work trip in Taiwan, or watching him on stage at the Huntington Theater in Boston, where he played the lead role in the play Dead End and finished by leaping off the stage into a pool of water. I still have my ticket stub from that night. All this to say, you never know what people will become or where life will take you. And all of us here at the School of Management, faculty, staff, and leadership, all hope to help you navigate your path forward, wherever it takes you. Thanks so much, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
One final thought. I'd really like to take this opportunity to thank Liz Merkel for organizing this event. If it wasn't for her, we wouldn't have had access to Charlie Day. We thank her and the team, including Danielle Glenn and Tanya Alvarez. And everyone, please keep informed of upcoming events at the School of Management. Our team brings in people from all facets of the business community to talk to you about what's going on in business and lessons you can learn. So please stay tuned through your time here and also when you leave us. So welcome, and we look forward to working with you in the future.